¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome to the Friday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Friday morning. Howdy, everybody. It is a special, I guess, different edition of the stream, as unfortunately yesterday we were unable to be on stream, but that's okay. We got today, yeah? On Wednesday, there was a massive amount of back-to-back raids, so I just want to reiterate my gratitude towards all these wonderful folks. Thank you so much, Doc Binwin. Thank you, Benjamin P. Dixon Show. Thank you, Real Dan Cody, for the massive just back-to-back-to-back raids. on Wednesday. Thank you. Thank you for all the new offline follows. I appreciate that. Stormtrooper Corpse. That's an interesting username. Hey, Tendera, how's it going? Happy Friday. It is the weekend. It is the weekend. You see, unlike the majority report, I actually care about delivering quality audio. That being said, Thandera, can you hear me okay? Does it sound okay? Cool. Cool. That's I always like to make sure I get good feedback here. I don't want it to be too loud. I want it to be nice, crisp, ready to go, you know. Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Appreciate that. All right, so I think we found our center when it comes to audio. I've been messing with this for quite some time already. I think almost 2 weeks. Every stream I've been adjusting something little by little until we're finally zeroing in on what I believe to be perfect or good crisp sound. This also comes from my musician background. I saw a lady with a Twitter username that said proud daughter of a Vietnam vet, and I realized that's weird to do, right? We have a next... Yeah, that's kind of... Out of all the things, that's kind of weird, you know? Could you imagine someone in Vietnam seeing that? Yeah, but it's just strange, you know? Overt levels of nationalism is just it's just bizarre, you know? It's just bizarre. Overt levels of nationalism or overt, misplaced, I think, trust in a certain political party or even in a certain political person is just always bizarre to me, you know? It's just bizarre to me. Sorry, random, but it made me realize how much nationalism is normalized. Yeah, it's normalized under the... it's normalized under... It's couched. It's couched between, patriotism, but then it's, used as a tool to create this unwavering support, no matter what, for your country, for your flag, which is really, really weird, champ. Hey, soldier, I missed you yesterday. Don't worry, Astro, we're here today. That's what matters. We're here today. Thank you, Astro. Appreciate you hanging out here. So yesterday I had a very important meeting. More details and more update. Oh, hello, kitty. I didn't even know you were here. Come on. You're not going to chew on my cables, are you? Come on, kitty. It's okay. Come on. Okay. There you go, kitty. Okay, so I guess she's going to help me do the news. Juan Jesus, hola. How's it going? Howdy. Please keep speaking truth to power and seriously hard of thinking. Well, we're trying. So as I was saying yesterday, I couldn't be on stream because we had a very important meeting. more details on that to be released as we progress. I suspect that there will be another announcement within a couple of weeks to a month. Lots of changes coming, that's for sure. Lots of changes are coming. That being said, I'm going to shamelessly use my cat to plug, if you guys haven't done so already, and do enjoy what I do and do enjoy our content. Don't forget to hit the follow button. It does help us out. Hey, don't forget to hit the follow button. It does help us out. And you get 5 free emotes, including Bakita the cat. I mean, how could you say no? How could you say no to Bakita the cat? Look at her. Look at her. Kitty. Oh. She's like tickling my hand. Will you do Catterday tomorrow? I believe Catterday is still on as normal, from what I understand. Catterday should be still good. Catterday should still be good. Oh, I haven't even brought up some of the articles that I'm supposed to be doing here. Okay. Okay, here we go. We've got a lot of climate news to go through. There's always stuff to talk about. Will you do... yes, Catterday is still on. I don't know if I answered that. Southern UK is under a major storm. There has been 122 miles per hour winds recorded. It is scary. Yeah, that's usually the norm for South Florida hurricanes. Yeah, it is. It is kind of bizarre, right? That's not something that happens there often, right? I'm gonna sub to you on the 20th. Hassan Abi said some things last week that made me want to unsub, but I can't. Oh man. Geez. If I may, what exactly did Hassan say this time? Okay, let me make sure we got everything going here. Yeah, I didn't get to do the news yesterday, so we've got some headlines to catch up on.
Fellow citizens of the United States.
Whoa.
In your
The heck? Okay. There was a young black girl that, no, I don't think he's been kicked off. There's a young black girl that basically said some leftists say out-of-pocket things to black people, especially at those like Candace Owens, that he couldn't take criticism. And he couldn't take the criticism and made it 1,000 times worse. He won't sit and listen to what black people have to say. He just gets defensive. Well, I mean, first of all, Hassan, there was a young black girl that basically said some leftists say out-of-pocket things to black people, especially people like Candace Owens. I mean, like, yeah, if you're attacking Candace Owens solely because... And you do some, like, weird champ, like, comments that vaguely allude to her race, that's kind of weird, champ. You can criticize Candace Owens' terrible, horrifying ideas, because, let's be clear, she has horrible and terrifying ideas. But they have nothing to do with her race or gender or anything else. It has to do with her ideas. When you've got Candace Owens saying things like, you know, George Soros is the one that's pulling all the strings. George Soros has control of the media and is the puppet master. Yeah, I think those are worthy criticisms. Ow. Kitty, stop it. He said the back of the bus, but a joke to Nicki Minaj. Yikes. Yeah, you see that gets into dicey territory. That's pretty cringe. That gets into dicey territory, you know? That's whew. We're heading into some dicey territory. Like, that's very close to the sun. That is way too close to the sun for my comfort. But either way, like, I don't think that it's bad to criticize people. I think it's bad when you start making jokes that are alluding, like, especially when it comes to... That's kind of weird. Why would you do that? Why would... Okay. That's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. You can criticize people's ideas, especially if they're bad, such as Candace Owens. Like, we don't criticize Ben Shapiro because he's a Jewish person. We criticize Ben Shapiro for his dog shit, like, takes. That's why we criticize him. Yeah, understandable, Tendera. That's understandable. Yeah, it's just a bit weird. What Hassan was saying to Nicki Minaj was actually true, but it's not his place to say it. Yeah, I mean, it could be, it could leave a bad, you know, it looks bad, is what it is. It looks bad, it's not, why? Why do you need to get yourself into this, you know? Not good. Not good. This is why I stay out of, like, commenting. Yeah, especially when you start making jokes about it, right? This is why I avoid commenting on, like, other content creators or commenting on, like, drama stuff, commenting on celebrities, generally speaking. I just avoid the whole thing, you know? Like, dude, try to bring forth good ideas and try to make sure that whatever you do pushes forward the best outcomes, right? That's the whole point. If you're into politics, I mean, if you're into politics, especially like Hassan being such a big politics streamer or whatnot, I don't even know if he is anymore, but you're supposed to be pushing, like, good things, right? Instead of, like, making some weird champ jokes, you know? That's kind of weird. That was enough for me to unsub. It happens. Yeah, especially, I mean, this is why I just don't do it. It's easy. Easy. It's so easy. Alright, folks. We've got some headlines to run through. Stop. I hope I didn't miss anything. I don't believe I did. Okay. I think we're okay. Let me make sure we got all of this. Kitty, no. No. Hey, okay, that's it. That wasn't very nice. That was not very nice. There was a tornado last night in Mississippi. Jesus Christ. Well, we can look that up. I hope it wasn't bad. Yeah. Tornado. Wait. Tornado, Mississippi. Let's see. "13 hours ago, live tornado storm chase in Mississippi." Yeah, it looks like there was. Jesus. Wow. Alright, I think we got everything set up. Cool. Alright. First up. Hey, here's a cool new study. Vaccination after COVID sank reinfection rates. 2 studies show bolstered protection with vaccines for those with past infections, i.e. the hybrid type of immunity. Those with a prior COVID infection getting at least 1 dose of the vaccine was tied to a significantly lower rate of reinfection. Getting 2 doses provided substantial protection for more than a year. Nice. After the initial infection. In a retrospective study using an electronic medical records from one of Israel's largest health service providers, reinfection rates were far lower among the previously infected who had received at least 1 dose of Pfizer compared with those who remained unvaccinated. 2.46 versus 10.2 cases per 100,000 persons a day, reported Ronan Arbel, PhD of Clalit Health Services in Tel Aviv, and colleagues in the New England Journal of Medicine. They found no difference in vaccine effectiveness between 1 dose and 2 doses in the population. Cool. So if you happen to have been one of those folks who got COVID, maybe at the beginning of the pandemic before the vaccine was available, and now, or just at any point you had COVID and then you get the vaccine, it seems like you have such a robust immune response that it looks like it was even better than originally thought. Hey, Celticaboo, how's it going? Howdy, howdy. A second New England Journal of Medicine study of more than 35,000 healthcare workers in the UK also found that the previous infection plus vaccination provided a substantial protection for more than a year after that initial infection. Wow. Protection against infection with 2 doses of vaccine waned considerably after 6 months for those without prior infection, but immunity only began to wane considerably at 1 year for those previously infected and not vaccinated. Reported Susan Hopkins, PhD, adding 2 vaccine doses prior to infection led to protection of more than 90% of reinfection and protection that didn't appear to wane up to 18 months after infection. Can I help you, kitty? Okay, but you're not going to bite me, are you? These findings from both studies coincided with the Delta wave. The Israeli researchers noted that it is unknown whether the results held true through the Omicron surge. The evidence that was gathered in the study during a surge of the Delta variant in Israel supported a public health policy of vaccinated patients who have recovered from COVID, particularly in places where the Delta variant was still of concern. Hopkins and colleagues cautioned that the period of waning noted that their study... Stop it. Hey, no. No. We've got a very rowdy kitty today. No. I can see you. Okay. Since March of 2021, the Israeli Ministry of Health has recommended a single dose for the previously infected given at least 3 months after recovery, while the so-called natural immunity initially made citizens eligible for the country's Green Pass. The health department scrapped that rule in 2021 and began requiring at least 1 vaccine dose 6 months after infection to get the Green Pass. Further study, Arbel and colleagues looked at data from Clalit, which covers about 52% of the Israeli populations on reinfections from March to November of 2021. March 1st to November 26th. Of the 149,032 patients who recovered from infection, 83,356, 56% were subsequently vaccinated. Overall, 354 vaccinated patients were reinfected during that time, compared with the 2,168. Wow. So, this is, undeniable, the difference between people who got, vaccinated and people who didn't. I mean, this is just wild. The differences between the vaccinated and unvaccinated were larger in the younger cohort. Among those ages 16 to 64, there was 326 and 2,120 reinfections in the vaccinated and unvaccinated, respectively. Jeez. Jesus. That's the 2.61 versus the versus the 2.79 per 100,000 persons per day, while there were 28 and 48 reinfections respectively among those of ages 65 and up, 1.46 versus 3.02 per 100,000 persons per day. This could be due to the fact that older people who had been previously infected observed enhanced social distancing and other required precautions, especially during the surge of the Delta variant, even if they had decided against vaccination. It's almost like all these things were put in place for a reason. Huh, weird. In an adjusted analysis, the hazard ratio for reinfection in the vaccinated versus unvaccinated was 0.18 for those ages 16 to 64 and 0.40 for those ages 65 and up, thus an estimated vaccine effectiveness of 82% for younger people and 60% for older people that would still be considered, quote, quote, substantial protection. Yeah, no kidding. Holy yikes. That's, pretty good. Pretty good. Can I help you? A second analysis found no significant difference in protection between 1 or 2 vaccine doses. Overall, 81% of vaccinated patients received just 1 vaccine dose, 18.3% received 2 doses, and 0.7% received 3 doses. Given the previous exposure to the virus, it seems that primary vaccine dose in recovered patients who provided a more robust and longer immunogenic response than the first dose alone in patients without COVID. The study was limited by its observational nature and because it didn't assess data on severity of infection, hospitalization, or death. Oof. A study from Qatar. God damn it, kitty. A study from Qatar reported last week in the New England Journal of Medicine found that prior infection on its own held up against severe illness and death during that country's Omicron wave. Additionally, a study published in Morbidity and Mortality Weekly report looking at the data from New York and California found that during the U.S. Delta wave, being vaccinated after infection provided the best protection against hospitalization. True. Look at that. I mean, this just kind of gives a very, 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 very good case to the efficacy of these vaccines, right? Because like, if you happen like if you happen to have if you happen to have gotten COVID, and even those folks that got one dose, the immunity response with this vaccine after that was pretty robust, with immunity lasting much longer than originally expected. I don't know what to do with this cat, chat. I don't know what to do with this cat. Here, I'll try to show you guys. Just to give you a little sneak peek at what's happening. Do you see her sleeping on my lap? She is very cute. So that's good. I got COVID days after I got my booster. I bet I had great protection. Yeah, now because you got that booster, you're probably good for the next year, according to this study. 3 in 4 Americans have immunity from Omicron on model estimates, but the other 80 million have to be very careful. About 73% of Americans are currently immune from the Omicron variant, and that number could rise up to 80% by mid-March as highly infectious COVID strain continues to circulate. The University of Washington's Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluations estimated for the Associated Press about 50% of eligible Americans are fully vaccinated and boosted, and 80 million have been confirmed. 80 million COVID infections have been confirmed, and many other infections were never reported. The IHME modelers look at those figures into account and try to fill in the blanks by looking at health data from Britain, Denmark, South Africa, and other countries. But 3/4 of Americans have some level of protection. Future spikes will likely require much less, if any, dramatic disruption to society. Yay! At the small price of at the small price of almost $1 million. Yeah. I'm optimistic even if we have a surge. In summer, cases will still go up, but hospitalizations and deaths will not, said IHME's Ali Moqdad tells AP, but even the most optimistic estimates, some 80 million Americans are still vulnerable to the dangerous virus, and the 26% who could still get Omicron right now have to be very careful. We've reached a much better position for the coming months, but with waning immunity, we shouldn't take it for granted. Millions of Americans don't have immunity because they refuse to get vaccinated, but also there's also more than 7 million immunocompromised adults who will likely never have strong immunity, and tens of millions with at least one medical condition that puts them at greater risk of COVID. Yeah. And they have seized over talks from politicians and public health experts that they perceive as minimizing the value of their life. transplant recipients, cancer patients, and others with compromised immune system has been sequestering at home, keeping their children out of school, skipping medical care rather than risk exposure to this virus since March of 2020. As year 3 of the pandemic approaches, with public support for precautions plummeting and governors of even the most liberal states moving to shut off the mask mandates, they themselves are coping with exhaustion and grief rooted in the sense that their neighbors and leaders are willing to accept them as collateral damage in the return to normalcy. Yeah, like the idea that this is wild how we've reached this point. I mean, COVID fatigue is real, and it's wild that we've reached this point, and we've accepted that this is just the case. We just normalized it. Speaking of Florida, we got some good memes coming out of Florida. Florida House passes 15-week abortion ban, advances to the Senate. The freest state in the country. Good memes. Good memes. Look at all this freedom. The Florida House of Representatives passed a bill that would ban abortions after 15 weeks in the state's 78 to 39 early Thursday morning. Early Thursday morning? That's kind of weird. The bill will next go to the Senate, and Governor Ron DeSantis, and Governor Ron DeSantis asked for his signature. The governor have shown support for this bill. The vote came after more than 5 hours of passionate debate and a brief delay by protesters. We have an opportunity today to pass a once-in-a-lifetime legislation to save lives. What lives are you saving, per se? This is such an asinine argument. I hate this argument. This argument is so stupid. You've got to protect the life. What life are you protecting? It's not a life. Jesus Christ. To save babies. I hate this. I hate this so much. This is such a dishonest framing, because it makes it seem like every abortion is like taking a live baby, ripping them out, and like sacrificing them like in the operating room or something. I don't know. It just seems like the picture that they're trying to paint for abortions, it's as if they're like ripping live babies. It's so dishonest. Said State Representative Jenna Mulika, Republican sponsor of the bill, said before the vote. The bill follows others, like Mississippi and Texas, that have passed similar abortion bans. The U.S. Supreme Court has signaled it will likely uphold Mississippi's 15-week ban. Arizona and West Virginia also advanced 15-week bans this week. Cool, because it's all that's all part of the plan. Once a small provision gets chipped away, then they move on to the next one, and to the next one, and to the next one. A Florida House voted down amendments that would have made exceptions. Oh my God. Hey, this is cool. The Florida House voted down amendments that would have made exceptions for rape, incest, human trafficking. Hey, wasn't like the Republicans always talking about how there's so much, human traffickers coming in, of course it's only the brown people coming through the border, talking about how horrifying human trafficking is. That's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. But included ones in case of fatal abnormality or of the fetus, or if the mother's life or health is seriously threatened by the pregnancy. Jesus Christ. Free state, folks. Look how free. This is the right to life, and to give up life is unconscionable to me, said Republican Dana Trabulsi, who disclosed that she previously had an abortion but has regretted it every day since. Well, that's your choice, dude. That's your choice. That's the whole point. That's the whole argument. That's the whole argument. You had a choice, okay? If you regretted that choice, then that's you. You shouldn't then turn that around into some twisted crusade to take anybody else's choices away. You don't have that right. You don't have that right. You do not have that right. This is the right to life? What are you talking about? What about the woman's life? The woman is the one that's here, not the cluster of cells that you've twisted into making people think that they're like live babies. Hey, James Napper, how's it going? I love this background picture. That's cute. Are you okay, Leonardo? You okay, buddy? You doing alright? She's written a few books on the subject now, one of them in her picture. One of them in her picture is there on the top right. Where? Wait. Anti-abortion movement and the fall of the Republican establishment. Is that this here? Hold on, folks. I think my cat needs to get up on the condo. Okay. Be free, cat. Be free. What? Great, now she wants to go outside. That's right. A cluster of cells is basically more important than any type of like affordable childcare, anything that would help working families raise a child, any resources, none of that, because that's, dirty communism. Anything that would actually help kids. State Senator Robin Bartlett, a Democrat, argued that as a woman, it is my right to make my decisions about my body and what is in the best interest of my family. God forbid your 11-year-old is, raped and pregnant, and you find out 15 weeks and you don't get your daughter that abortion. That's what this law says. True. That's actually true, because they didn't even have the decency, the moral decency to add any of these provisions. More than a dozen protesters shouting "My body, my choice" were ejected from the chamber shortly before the vote. Under the state's current law, abortion is legal until 24 weeks into pregnancy. Yeah, freest state in the country, folks. This is the freest state. Make no mistake, the only thing that they want here is to be able to control what women can and cannot do. It's all at the fundamental core of this pro-life, which is a misnomer. There's nothing pro-life about them, but whatever, that's what they call themselves. It's a misnomer, nonetheless. At the core of this argument is that they want to be the ones to control what women do, what people do with their bodies. That's literally it. That's it. That's it. And do they just want all these kids born so they can give them $7 minimum wages? Yeah. Nah, it's about control. I mean, I guess that's a downstream effect of forcing birth. That is a downstream effect of forcing birth, but I think it's really just control. I think really fundamentally at the core of it is just control. What if they literally want all these kids born so that they can keep the working class working? Maybe. In Brazil, there was a terrible, terrifying mudslide. So tragic. The death toll from devastating mudslides and floods that swept through a mountainous region of Rio de Janeiro has reached a toll of 78, Governor Claudio Castro said on Wednesday. The city of Petropolis was slammed by a deluge on Tuesday, and Castro said almost 400 people were left homeless. Searchers picked through the wreckage throughout the day, and 21 people were recovered alive. Civilians joined official recovery efforts, among them Priscilla Neves and her siblings, who looked through the mud for any signs of their disappeared parents, but found only clothing. Neves told the Associated Press that she had given up hope of finding her parents alive. Rosaline Virgilio, 49, was in tears as she recalled the desperate pleas from someone she couldn't save. There was a woman screaming, "Help, get me out of here," but we couldn't do anything. The water was gushing and the mud was gushing out. Yikes. Our city is unfortunately finished. Petropolis is a German-influenced city named for its former Brazilian emperor. Nestled in the mountains above the coastal metropolis for almost 2 centuries, it's been a refuge for people escaping summer heat and tourists keen to explore the so-called, quote, imperial city. Jesus Christ. Petropolis was among the nation's first planned cities and features stately homes along its waterways, but its population is growing haphazardly, climbing mountains now covered with small residences packed tightly together. Many are in areas unfit for structures and are rendered more vulnerable by deforestation and inadequate drainage. Yeah. The governor told reporters earlier that the situation was almost like a war, then that he was mustering all the state's government's heavy machinery to help dig out the buried area. The state fire department said Tuesday that the area received 25.8 centimeters, just over 10 inches of rain within 3 hours on Tuesday, almost as much as during the previous 30 days combined. Petropolis Civil Defense Authority said moderate rain was expected after Wednesday afternoon and evening. Yeah. Something tells me that this is a perfect opportunity to talk about the problems with deforestation and just how catastrophic human interference can be. Not only that, this is just unprecedented to have almost like 30-day combined of rain dropped on you within what? Within 3 hours? That's not normal. That's not normal. Video on social media Tuesday showed cars and houses being dragged away by landslides and water swirling through Petropolis and neighboring districts. On Wednesday, houses were buried beneath the mud while appliances and cars were piled on the streets where they had been swept the night before. Some people had attempted to flee the perilous hillsides. Neighbors came running down and I gave them shelter. But under torrents of water, his roof collapsed. He managed to get his mother and 3 other people out of the bar in time, but one neighbor and person's daughter was unable to escape. Jesus Christ. It was like an avalanche. It all fell at once. I've never seen anything like it. Every neighbor has lost a loved one, has lost 2 or 3 members of the same family and kids. Yikes. Yeah. Southeastern Brazil has been punished with heavy rain since the start of the year, with more than 40 deaths recorded between incidents in Minas Gerais state in early January and Sao Paulo later the same month. This is just devastating. Look at this. This is horrifying. This is horrifying. This is what potentially the new normal could look like. That's just unfathomable. Let's turn our attention back to Florida. As you guys have probably have heard me report on, there was a pretty bad condo collapse that happened, I believe, last year. Last June, okay. That basically almost killed 100 people. I think it was like 98 people died. And there was a lot of factors involved. There's a lot of factors involved. But here, we have a potential new factor. Hey, Stupka, how's it going? Time to hedge our bets on life and buy land in Canada. What? That's not a real place. Not long after the condo tower collapsed in Surfside, Florida last year, Randall Parkinson had what he calls an epiphany. Parkinson, a coastal geologist who studied the impact of climate change at the Florida International University of Miami, wondered whether rising sea levels had driven salt water into the ground beneath the tower, corroding its concrete foundation. Others were asking similar questions, but he couldn't find anyone who researched the effect of saltwater intrusion on residential buildings. So I decided to dig a little deeper. Parkinson said, more than 7 months after the June 24th collapse, which left 98 people dead, there's no definitive answer about what caused the 40-year-old condo, the Champlain Tower South, to fall. Parkinson is one of several scientists who believe that the tower may have been damaged by salt water seeping into its underground foundation. He and others had previously found that rising sea levels press underground saltwater closer to the foundations of coastal buildings. They also noted that photos showed corroded columns and flooding in Champlain Tower's underground garage, and that staff members reported pumping water out of the garage. In a December report, a Miami-Dade County grand jury investigating the collapse also theorized that saltwater intrusion had probably damaged the building's foundation. Parkinson and other experts stressed they aren't saying such damage brought down the 12-story building. The cause of the collapse on a barrier island that includes Miami Beach is under investigation by federal authorities. Champlain Tower South suffered from construction flaws and extensive above-ground corrosion. Residents complained that its foundation shook during the construction of a tower next door. An environmental scientist has documented that the building had slowly sunk in the 90s. Jesus. But even if saltwater intrusion wasn't the cause of collapse, experts say they want to spread awareness of an unseen and overlooked threat that could make many other residential towers on the Florida coast vulnerable to decay. I feel like this was completely missed. You can see coastal erosion. You can't see if you're losing your shoreline or if your property gets flooded. But what you don't see, and what people hadn't really begun to think about, is anything that's occurring hidden underground. It's out of sight, out of mind. Parkinson and other scientists could face challenges persuading Floridians to take action in response to the threat of rising groundwater, not only because research remains thin, but also because addressing the damage to the buildings would likely be expensive and could hinder a condo industry that helps drive the state economy. Yeah, which is like, this is like classic peak Florida, basically. I had this argument with my parents when it comes to climate change. They were like, well, there's so much construction going on. Why would they continue to build if they believe that climate change is going to be a thing? It's like, well, they know it's a thing. They just don't care, and they feel like they'll cash out by the time any of that goes down. They've already made their money. They aren't there to evaluate the long term stability of that. They're there to make that quick money and cash out and leave. That's what they're there for. Many buildings and foundations are made with steel-reinforced concrete. If it's not properly protected, the concrete can absorb salt water, triggering corrosion from the supportive steel inside. That leads to spalling, in which the steel rebar expands and crumbling the concrete around it. Jesus. In its December report examining condo safety after the collapse, the Miami-Dade County grand jury noted that the open and obvious spalling at Champlain Tower South and concluded that it was fairly certain there was unseen corrosion and weakening of the concrete in the foundation and underground pillars. The grand jury also warned that the saltwater intrusion could pose a significant danger beyond the Champlain Tower South, saying it may be creating hazardous conditions that will negatively impact concrete pillars and foundations that are providing support to building structures, especially those in coastal communities. So, yeah. This is being perpetuated by rising sea level. Is exacerbating this issue, which is a domino effect of climate change, right? Yeah, this is Florida's high-stake version of a hot potato. Correct. Like, these people will develop an area, make these multi-millionaire, very bougie buildings, and will peace out. They've got theirs, they made their pennies, peace out, and that's it. The panel's foreman declined to comment on the findings, as did a spokesperson for the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office, citing confidentiality rules. The grand jury was tasked with exploring the public safety implications of the collapse, not with recommending criminal charges. That work will be taken up by local prosecutors after federal authorities determine the cause. In November, Parkinson published the first peer-reviewed study on the issue of rising sea levels, underground attack on residential buildings, which was later reported then by the Palm Beach Post. Using data from nearby monitoring wells, Parkinson showed that with the sea level rise, the number of times groundwater rose above the level of the Champlain Tower South garage floor increased from an average of 244 times a year from 1994 to 2006 to 636 times from 2007 to 2020. If the condo industry fix it, or people could die. Yeah, well, people did die. But unfortunately, they don't care. Although Parkinson wasn't able to obtain the data on the water salinity, he hypothesized during the natural tidal cycle, particularly during extreme high king tides underground seawater in the freshwater layer above it, called a lens, probably mixed. Probably mixed. The frequency of mixing will increase as sea level continues to rise. Ultimately, it'll all go to salt. The ocean will be so high and will flood the area, and there'll be no freshwater lens. We are just at the beginning of this and don't have enough to know what it is like now, but we can't speculate where this is going. An hour or so up the coast from Parkinson's office, two professors at Florida Atlantic University who have been pursuing a similar theory. After the collapse, Fred Blocher, a civil engineer who studies how sea level rise affects municipal water systems, called Anthony Abate, an architect focused on protecting buildings from climate change. They talk about the possibility that steel-reinforced concrete in a building's foundation could fail from deterioration caused by rising levels of salty groundwater. Quote, do you think that this could be a factor? I don't know, but it sure looks like it. In mid-December, Blocher, Abate, and a Florida Atlantic University colleague, Khalid Soban, submitted a study titled, Can Sea Level Rise and Accompanying Saltwater Intrusion Contribute to Catastrophic Building Failures? To Technology, Architecture, and Design, a peer-reviewed journal. Using similar technology to Parkinson's work, the study said water level data indicated that Champlain Tower's south foundation, including piles, columns, and walls on the garage floor, may have been exposed to periodic salt water, which is known to accelerate corrosion in increasing amounts with more frequency. Yeah. Yep. Abate said that he's been trying for years to get architects and builders interested in the issue. Until now, he said studies of the risk of saltwater corrosion have largely focused on parts of buildings that are above ground or on public infrastructure such as bridges, roads, and water systems. In Fort Lauderdale, where Abate is based, saltwater intrusion has contributed to a series of bursting sewer pipes. Good memes. Like Fort Lauderdale in particular is notorious for consistently, especially in the more coastal side, I guess, in the more bougie areas, constantly there seem to have problems with the sewer for multiple reasons, and that is one of them. Surfside was a very tragic and unexpected outcome of processes we believe may have been going on, but never had a clear study or funded research to show this. More scientific studies could help bring changes to the building codes, which Abate said could require testing that shows the depth and salinity of the water beneath the buildings. New codes could also require that foundations be designed to better protect from corrosion. Ideally, foundations would be equipped with sensors allowing building owners to collect data on a building. Yeah, but if anything, we've shown, if anything that has been shown with this incident is that you could present the data and you could present the problems, and if it costs money, chances are it's not going to get fixed. That's the problem. That's the problem. A lot of these, and this is on the fault of the condo owners too, because the association is based on, it's a combination of the people who weren't adamant enough about the severity of the issues, and a combination of all these rich people in this condo not willing to spend the money to fix it, and of course, all of these factors together is what caused this problem. So I don't know. you could have all these codes and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, especially when it comes to South Florida, it is notorious to just kind of forgo these things. He and Blocher want to conduct more studies of properties in South Florida to get a better understanding of potential risk. Since the Surfside collapse, they've given talks on the topic to local construction and design professionals. Engineers, bankers, contractors seem interested, but representatives of real estate and insurance industries express less worry. I wonder why. Gee, I just can't put I just can't put my finger on it. I wonder why the real estate and insurance industries aren't so worried about it. He added that Florida condo laws and politics of condo boards don't encourage deeper investigations of potential threats because they can be expensive and hurt the real estate market. Damn. Damn, that's really strange. That's really, really strange. It's almost like it's almost like maybe, and this is just like a wild concept. Maybe you shouldn't be putting profit over, I don't know, people's lives, because 98 people died because of this kind of thought process, right? 98 people died because of this type of thinking. The biggest concern I have is if it was a factor at the Champlain Tower South, which we suspect it is, then this exists in many places and it's unseen. That is my real concern, that this is unseen and there's no reason why it doesn't happen again. Yeah, that's the problem, right? It is deeply concerning, but unless they can get away, as long as they can get away with skirting or avoiding new regulations or anything that would, God forbid, cost them money, they're going to do everything in their power to stop it. Are those families suing? That is a very good question. I think there was a lawsuit that was underway, actually. Why don't we look that up? Oh yeah, there's a lawsuit. There's a major lawsuit. There's a major lawsuit set for March of 2023. There's a major lawsuit set for 2023, March of 2023. They should have to pay those families for the rest of their lives. Yeah. I think that whoever ends up being to blame, whether it be shoddy contractors or the board who made like these, I mean, there's definitely some, I don't know legally who's going to end up being liable, but there's a few people, parties at play here. And I think also even the local, even the person who I think foregoed like some inspection, or there was some little weird shady stuff going on there with inspections, is also probably gonna be liable, I think. Miami, South Florida is notorious for having dubious inspectors. Dubious ways of inspecting, buildings and stuff like that. Harold Wanless, a University of Miami geologist who had been warning about the effects of sea level rise in Florida for decades and who once taught Parkinson, said he agreed that Parkinson had identified a blind spot in the study of saltwater intrusion. But he cautioned that it remains unclear whether saltwater actually infiltrated the foundation of Champlain Tower South. Without the data, we should be careful saying that the saltwater ate up the concrete. I don't think that that's the argument. I think that the argument is it is a legitimate concern, especially as sea level rise continues to undeniably be a problem, especially now knowing that saltwater could intrude the foundations of these buildings, of these coastal buildings, right? Michael Sukop a hydrogeologist at the Florida International University, said he too has grown interest in the saltwater's attack on concrete foundations on buildings like the Champlain Tower South. He is working on a project measuring how saltwater intrusion might affect the concrete and coastal building foundations. It is difficult to figure that out on Surfside because there isn't enough information about the amount of saltwater in the ground. I'd like to see more monitoring for freshwater and saltwater interface. More monitoring for freshwater/saltwater interfaces on barrier islands and on the mainland. Otherwise, we have trouble answering these questions. Yep. TLDR, the rising sea levels, which we've got a perfect transition here. The rising sea levels in coastal areas have much more ramifications than just flooding or increasing flooding. Let's take a look at this NOAA report. This one's going to be brief. We're just going to look at the 4 points because the whole technical report is over here. I'll go post it in chat if you want to look at the entirety of the technical report. They should have to pay those families for the rest of their lives, ideally, but even then, I mean, I think that a lot of times what's really frustrating is that even if people win lawsuits, even if like these large companies end up, you know, paying millions of dollars, at the end of the day to them, that's already put in the cost of business. That's already put in the determining that is an acceptable cost of business that may happen. So they've already accounted for that, and it's like, it's not really punitive, to say the least. The Sea Level Rise Technical Report provides the most up-to-date sea level rise projections for all the U.S. states and territories. Decision makers will look into it for information. Yeah, that's a good meme. This multi-agency effort represents the first update since 2017, offers projections out to the year 2150. Wow. And information to help communities assess potential changes in the average tide heights and height-specific threshold and frequencies as we strive to adapt to sea level rise. Cool. The 4 takeaways. The next 30 years of sea level rise. The sea level among the U.S. coastline is projected to rise on average 10 to 12 inches, which is huge, in the next 30 years, which would be as much as the rise measured over the last 100 years. Yeah. So in the next, in the next 30 years, it will rise about as much as it should be in 100 years. Or in the last 100 years. Sea level rise will vary regionally among the U.S. coast because of changes of both land and ocean height. Point number 2. Yeah, this is also like to kind of hammer down the point that, especially here, where we will just see the problems of saltwater intrusion become more exacerbated. And all of this is a downstream domino effect of climate change, because if you have a planet that continues to warm and melt the ice and raise sea levels, that is one of the downstream effects of this. More damaging flood projected. Sea level rise will create a profound shift in coastal flooding over the next 30 years. Again, that's not too far. 30 years, that's not a lot of time. 30 years, we'll still be here. We'll still be here. By causing tide and storm surge heights to increase and reach further inland. By 2050, moderate, typically damaging flooding is expected to occur on average more than 10 times as often as it does today, and can be intensified by local factors. Isn't that cool? So that's just the moderate typically damaging. So moderate doesn't mean it's not good, it's not that bad. Moderate means there's still damaging flooding that will occur about 10 times as often. Major, often destructive flooding is expected to occur 5 times as much as often. That's not good. That's definitely not good. Current and future emissions matter, no kidding. About 2 feet of sea level rise along the US coastline is increasingly likely between 2020 and 2100 because of emissions to date. Failing to curb emissions could cause an additional 1.5 to 5 feet of rise for a total of 3.5 to 7 feet by the end of the century, which again is not really that long and is, I think, almost in line with a lot of what the IPCC report was saying about the severity of the sea level rise. Current and future emissions will determine the amount of additional rise in the future. The greater the emissions, the greater the warming, the greater the likelihood of higher sea levels, right? Which is exactly what we just discussed. Above the 5.5 degrees Fahrenheit of global warming, much greater sea level rise becomes possible for the US and globally because of potential rapid melting of ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica. The amount of additional warming required to trigger this is unknown because ice sheet instability is difficult to model, and there's greater variability in the current modeling approaches. Efforts are underway to improve our understanding of ice sheet dynamics in order to more precisely project future sea level rise in response to continued emissions and warming. Yikes. Continuously tracking how and why sea level is changing is an important part of informing plans for adaptation. Our ability to monitor and understand individual factors that contribute to sea level rise allow us to track sea level changes in a way that never before been possible using satellites to track global ocean levels and ice sheet thickness. Ongoing and expanded monitoring will be critical as sea levels continue to rise. Yep. Yesterday morning, the sky was unusually dark and gray, and I found out that a giant country club 20 to 30 minutes away was on fire and was trending on Twitter. What? Jesus Christ. Continuously tracking how and why sea level is changing is an important part of informing plans for adaptation. U.S. federal agencies performing continuous monitoring and assessment of key sea level rise source contributions affecting U.S. coastlines, such as ocean heat content, ice mass loss from Greenland and Antarctica, vertical land motion, and changes in the Gulf Stream, can provide early indications of changes in the trajectory of sea level rise, which can inform shifts in adaptation planning. My message got held back? Ah. And somehow the conspiracy weirdos turned into something about pedos and the devil? What? Is that QAnon stuff? Are we entering QAnon territory? Because that seems to fit the bill. They thought it was a grooming school? What? That's weird. Like you could just look that up, right? Like, it takes 5 seconds. You can look that up. That is so sad how people can just like be so incapable of critical thinking. How could you not look this up? It takes 5 seconds to see if the building that you think may or may not be a grooming school, to Google it. What is it? You would know that it would be a giant golf course. That's it. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But, conspiracies don't really have to make sense. Yeah, it's a giant golf course. How could you not just Google that? I don't get it. It makes no sense whatsoever. I searched Oakland Hills on Twitter and the conspiracy guy came up. Oh my god. Wait, which conspiracy guy? Yikes. Jeez. That looks like a bad fire. I search Oakland Hills. I don't know who, but the guy who's spreading it? How the heck did this happen? First comment. It's an insurance fire. Good memes. It's your day off? Yeah, but I wasn't here yesterday, so this is the follow-up stream. Wow, this is so weird. No. Oh my god, this is some wild dots being attempted to be connected here. Jesus. Wha- These are some wild dots here. What? So this is why I don't do Twitter. Apparently I've been led to a I don't want to say like thread or topic. Apparently some people think that the vaccine causes AIDS, which is very weird. Of course there have been, numerous studies now that had to come out and say that there's no link between HIV or AIDS and the COVID vaccine. I mean, this is just asinine to think that that's even a possibility. People are strange. Very, very strange. Some people literally just live in another reality. True. It is scary. It is very scary. It is very scary. Here we have professional clown Jordan Peterson continuing on this like strange crusade on spreading climate change denial, climate change disinformation by signal boosting Douglas Murray about how fracking is such a godsend. It is in part the result of successive British governments being timid and short-sighted in a way that has real-world consequences that hit all of us in the pocket. During the past decade, this country has had the opportunity to transform its energy position. It was shown that the UK was sitting on a vast reserve of shale gas, which is one of the most awful, destructive ways of getting fossil fuels. This was a godsend. Over the previous decade, as North Sea production declined, this country went from being a net exporter to gas to a net importer. So then focus on renewables, you absolute fucking clown. So when it turned out that we could have accessed our shale reserves with modern quote fracking techniques, any government should have leaped at the chance. No. Not at least because of areas of Lancashire and Yorkshire under which these reserves sit could have done with massive economic boost that fracking would have brought. Seaside towns such as Blackpool that have been on the climb for generations suddenly have sprung life again with rich new economy, but something very sinister happened. Sinister. A massive campaign began against fracking. Gee, man, damn. I wonder why. I wonder why.
I can often hold a standard kitchen match to my water, and like I said, it is unpredictable, but the methane randomly travels with the water, and sometimes it will light.
Yeah, I wonder why there's
spectacularly.
Oh man, I just can't put my finger on what the potential problems for fracking could be.
Just like that.
Damn, I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine why there would be such a massive campaign for fracking. It's just.
Now,
right.
Chesapeake is going to say, well, there's natural occurring methane in the wells already. What do you have? What's your reply to a comment like that?
My reply is that their post-fracking test, their own, the methane tested 0.01 milligrams per liter, and since July of 2010, it has tested as high as 64 milligrams. So obviously something has changed.
Gee.
And usually you can, they say as long as it aerates, it's safe to drink, and usually you can see a little bit of gas just aerating out of there. I don't know whether you can see it or not. Sometimes you have to hold it just right.
Yep.
Yeah. I just can't quite put my finger on it as to why there would be a massive campaign against fracking. I just can't put my finger on it. It talks about the need to preserve our environment, yet thinks that nothing of utterly ruining our landscape with huge unsightly wind farms. What a fucking clown. What an absolute clown. Douglas Murray is an absolute fucking clown, has no idea what he's talking about. Is this guy a climate scientist? Hold on. Is this guy a climate scientist? Nope, just some fucking clown on the internet. You have to also question the idea what economic gain can only come from some kind of ecological sacrifice. Yeah, and that ecological sacrifice has downstream effects to human health. Absolute dog shit fucking article. I hate this fucking talking point. Oh, you're ruining our landscape with a huge unsightly wind farms. I'm sorry, is this what you prefer? No, fuck. I'm sorry, is that unsightly to you? Nobody's going to dispute the basic laws of thermodynamics here. Obviously, to make things, you need to have things and use energy to change them, but the point is it doesn't always have to be done through the method of utter destruction. Real economies are what capitalists like to call efficient, and true efficiency is in the form of guaranteed renewable energy that doesn't run out. Yeah. But the problem with that, there's a contradiction. There's a contradiction within the goals of capitalists, which is to make money, and the realities of like trying to make renewable energy. It's so cheap and so efficient that it's actually against it's like a contradictory thing. Have you seen any updates on people in Hawaii whose water was poisoned by the Navy? To my understanding, there is a movement to there's a movement to move all of that fuel out of there, because that's absolutely disgusting. What renewable is cheap and so efficient? Wind? Solar? All of these. What are you talking about? Yeah, so this is apparently okay with Douglas Murray, but God forbid the unsightly wind turbines are too much of a problem for him. Not to mention, a lot of these turbines can be done offshore. Have you done the actual cost and production review on wind and solar? Yeah, I have. It's a lot cheaper. Hey, Echo Resto Dragon, how's it going? Areas of outstanding natural beauty have been utterly destroyed and the eyeline forever changed by reams of vast metal monstrosities. Like, what kind of fucking language is it? Jesus fucking Christ. By the same amount of, by the same people who want to destroy our landscape to save the environment were massively anti-fracking. They insisted it was dangerous and tried to scare the public, but they were not the only ones. A sinister campaign was also waged by foreign sources. Oh yeah, listen, I never want to hear about fucking Russia when these guys are fucking crying about fucking propaganda by the Russian government. The Kremlin's official foreign television network, Russia Today, ran pieces making ludicrous claims such as frackers are a moral equivalent of pedos, and that fracking gives cancer. Actually, there is actually significant evidence to suggest that there's numerous adverse health events in towns adjacent to fracking. There's numerous adverse health events to the people who have been in adverse, who have suffered adverse health events, who have been adjacent to fracking. I have no clue who that is or why a bot would share the fact that I was banned from that channel. Yeah, because it seems to me like you have there must be reasons for that, especially coming in here with saying some asinine claims, like so. Realistically, U.S. governments should be pumping more money into renewables in any way possible in the form of direct investment and state-funded and owned energy provisions. Also, direct incentives to existing companies that make it too good to not swiftly transition. Yes, but we're not seeing any of that. That's the problem. The report follows the international agency's conclusion of the World Energy Outlook in 2020 that solar power is now the cheapest electricity in history. Any further questions? Renewables were the cheapest source of energy. Damn. Listen, if you don't like the sources, that's a you problem. You can just go for anywhere carbon brief. The world's cheapest solar comes from the world's cheapest power comes from solar. Majority of renewables undercut cheap fossil fuel. Hydroelectric power is the cheapest sources in 2019. Damn. I think it was one of the 3 letters suggesting that the production maintenance side of these valuations removed from the study. It was wind. I want more hydro. Depending on how you make the hydro, it could have some adverse effects on the local ecology. It depends. There is room for certain ways of doing hydro. There is certain ways that you don't damage the local ecology, but it just depends. At the end of the day, fossil fuels are outdated, and we need to remove ourselves from them as quickly as possible. And we've got clowns like fucking Douglas Murray attempting to tell us that there's nothing to see here when it comes to fracking. Actually, wind turbines generate a massive amount, especially offshore. The way your language, monstrosities, is a good meme. Yeah, there's a significant amount of evidence to suggest that offshore wind actually generates a massive amount of electricity. Wind, especially offshore wind, is incredibly useful to generate electricity. You could power millions. A single modern-day offshore wind turbine can generate more than 8 megawatts of energy, enough to cleanly power nearly 6 homes for a year. Damn, look at Scotland leading the way. Scotland produced enough power from wind turbines in the first half of 2019 that it could power Scotland twice over. Put another way, it's enough energy to power Scotland and all of North England, according to the BBC, and it's an impressive step for the United Kingdom, which pledged to be carbon neutral in 30 years. Scottish wind turbines captured nearly 10 million megawatt hours of electricity in the first 6 months of the year. That was enough energy to supply 4.47 million. Damn. Oof. Oof. These are amazing figures. Scotland's wind energy revolution is clearly continuing to power ahead, said Robin Parker, the Climate and Energy Policy Manager of the Worldwide Fund for Nature. A Scotland office in a statement up and down the country, we're benefiting from cleaner energy and so is the climate. True. There's also, in California, California has been so efficient with renewables that it's actually exporting some of it out as well. Still turned their gas and bought it from Russia. Wait, Scotland isn't buying gas from Russia, is it? What big numbers versus reality? What are you talking about? California is almost completely renewable. Damn. The top fuel types for California are solar, wind. Yeah, but those power failures seem to be because of fossil fuels, not renewables. So therefore, shouldn't we move away from fossil fuels? No fossil fuels drive your alternative energies? I have no idea what you mean. No solar systems and wind energies rely on fossil fuels to operate. I have no idea. Like, you've come in here and said a lot of shit, but you have yet provided a single, like, article or evidence to suggest that why we should be relying on fossil fuels or anything of that sort. Like, what does that mean? What does it mean by relying on fossil fuels to operate? Do you mean that they have an initial cost up front to build? Yes, they have an initial cost. Yes, they do. Once you bring those online, then usually at that point, the amount of fossil fuels to maintain and operate are very minimal, if at all. And actually, can you provide a source for that? I would like to see that. Thoughts on Amazon? It's garbage. Next question. That's actually why they have an urgent. Okay, where are you getting this information from? I need a source, friend. Most powerful tidal turbines are generating electricity off Orkney. Nice. Yeah, those are the ones we were talking about putting in series with offshore turbines. Okay. Yeah, these are all more or less renewable. I don't understand. Where are you getting these figures? Ah, yes. So because you are on a platform, you have no ability to criticize it. Damn. Hypocrisy confirmed. Good memes. Listen, you can't operate on a single platform, or you can't criticize anything. You're just not allowed to speak on any grievances you may have because you're on the platform. Damn. Any other high resolution takes in chat? Despite the mountain evidence in the country, we keep being reassured that often insurance come. I need the evidence. Jesus Christ! I could literally type out like a random thing. I have no idea what any of this means. You're literally just typing like a paragraph in chat. Do you seriously think that people who work for national grids, think tanks, energy companies, and R&D universities populated by highly qualified people haven't factored in the cost of building renewables? Yeah, obviously. Hey, the Willie Harris Show, are you okay, buddy? Like, are you having like a like breakdown, like a meltdown? Are you okay? Is everything going good in your life? Anyways, I believe that obviously the people who have created these technologies have taken that into account and have realized that the impact by continuing to perpetuate fossil fuels is just unacceptable. Sorry for all your sorry all of your masters of science, doctors. Renewable is cheaper. All I have to do is smooth supply with storage. Send it to me via whispers because there's no link in chat. Yeah, and 30-year qualified individuals, state institution, private institutions, energy companies. Some guy on Twitch posted a paragraph to say that actually fossil fuels get used to build wind turbines, so you better shut up and the game is over. Right. Climate change isn't real? Damn. Native availability. I mean, this just kind of looks good for renewable energy. This kind of looks good for renewable energy, actually. So I don't understand what the problem is here. But if it's higher load factors, and most importantly, larger turbines can access higher winds due to increased height. So I don't understand. What the problem? What is your argument here? So then why even bring up the point? You do realize that we were talking about fracking, right? So my whole argument was the absolute clown known as Douglas Murray was trying to attempt to spread, first of all, climate disinformation, and second of all, was trying to attempt to say that fracking is good, actually. I would prefer wind to hydropower and that dams are not good, depending on how they're built. Eco Resto Dragon. By the most recent solar fight? Okay, so what is the game plan here? I said fracking isn't bad? No, fracking is horrible. Fracking is horrible, not just for the ecological disaster, not just for the ecological impacts, but for the health impacts as well. Fracking is horrible. And if you admit that that renewable energy is seemingly getting better and better and better, which the study seems to show that it is, and it's getting way more efficient, then you should be moving in that direction, not fracking. Humans should basically be interacting with water flows at ocean's absolute minimum. Dams, hydropower should only be used in certain cases when other options are not really that viable. Solar and wind are much better and less impactful. Take a ruined scenic view over populations of fish and being wiped out. Any whales and wiped out out of any day of the week. Fusion, yes, but we're not there yet, Astro. We're not even close. I think the alternative energy system should be integrated into our current fossil fuel system and they should be phased out. Okay? What we should be doing is decoupling ourselves in every way possible and as quickly as possible to fossil fuels. Period, full stop. Not encouraging fracking like this asshole is. An independent energy boom in this country would have changed everything. Yeah, you know what causes independence, energy independence? Renewables. Stop relying on fossil fuels from other countries. Stop relying on destroying your own citizens. Not only does it extract balloons, but it also has been linked to things like earthquakes and sinkholes that can have killed thousands of people. Yeah, exactly. They did a fusion for 5 seconds recently. A commercial reactor is being built in France. Yes, we have made small steps, but like, yeah. Yeah, that's not an excuse. You're doing like the whole whataboutism. Well, what about China? What about India? What about Russia? Don't worry about them. You don't control those countries. I thought it was the pipelines that gave us energy independence for the first time in a century. Okay. At what price, though? Like, you have to understand that, like, it seems to me like you're incapable of realizing the severity of the situation, and you're comfortable with the idea, because it might not affect you. Wait, who's fashioning our own news? What? The best way to achieve energy independence would be to go full renewable as quickly as possible, in every way possible. Is energy independence. What could be more energy independent than to rely on your own wind or solar? Your argument doesn't make sense. Your argument literally doesn't make any sense. It is not physically possible or practical unless you want to kill a third of the planet. What are you talking about? In Oklahoma, which has the most induced earthquakes in the world, can be linked to hydraulic fracturing operations, i.e. fracking. What renewable energy causes earthquakes? Yeah, that's a good question. What are you talking about? It's not physically practical or possible. Hey, Heat, how's it going? What's so great about energy independence when the planet is dying? Yeah, I don't know. The public were made to think that fracking would cause earthquakes if they went ahead, whereas a minimal amount of tremors are put up with from all sorts of heavy industry. Look at that. Do you see like the language that this fucking clown is using? Meanwhile, there has been numerous earthquakes due to fracking. You have current studies from our own government based off the Green New Deal. What are you talking about? Nobody brought up the Green New Deal. What? Fracking is a curse. Fracking should not be entertained. Fracking should be ran away with. The reality is, yeah, what other industries causes tremors? What other industry causes your tap water to to light on fire? I really want to know. Like, what is the defense necessary for fossil fuels? I don't get it. Literally, there's no argument. It is terrible for the environment. It is terrible for human health. It is terrible for local and planet ecology. It isn't even worth it economically. It is stifling innovation for new technologies, for renewable technologies. It is costing us way more than it's benefiting. It's just so frustrating when you deal with such like asinine articles like this. When you see shit like this, especially from people who are, and this is true, not climate scientists. Honestly, fuck this guy. Fuck Douglas Murray. Fucking piece of shit. You know, Douglas Murray probably will never have to live in a world where he has to look at his tap water and see whether or not it's poisoned. Douglas Murray will never live in a world where he has to look at his tap water and test whether or not it has bad harmful levels of methane. Does the production of oil and gas from shales cause earthquakes? If so, how does the earthquake relate to these operations? This is from the actual USGS Geological Services, which would be obviously the correct area to go to when it comes to earthquakes, right? That's obvious. You know, he does interview requests. Fuck him. To produce oil and gas formations, it is necessary to increase interconnectedness for the pore space, permeability for the shale so that the gas can flow through the rock and be extracted through production wells. This is usually done by hydraulic fracturing, which is fracking. Fracking intentionally causes small earthquakes, something that he denied. Magnitude solid of 1 enhanced permeability, but it has also been linked to larger earthquakes, which again, he denied. He lied about it. The largest earthquake known to be induced in hydraulic fracturing in the U.S. was the M4 earthquake in Texas. Out of all the places, I would expect this to be there. In addition to natural gas, fracking fluids and salt water trapped in the same formation as the gas are returned to the surface. These wastewaters are frequently disposed by injection into deep wells. The injection of wastewater and salt water into the subsurface can also cause earthquakes, which are large enough to be damaging. Which are large enough to be damaging. Yeah. The public were made to think that fracking would cause earthquakes if they went ahead, whereas minimal amount of tremors are put up with from all sorts of heavy industry. In addition to natural gas, fracking fluids and saltwater trapped in the same formation as the gas are returned to the surface. These wastewaters are frequently disposed by injection into deep wells. This injection is also the injection of wastewater and saltwater into the subsurface can also cause earthquakes that are large enough to be damaging. Yeah. And furthermore, fracking has been linked to larger earthquakes. Wastewater's disposal is a separate process in which fluid waste from oil and gas production are injected deep underground, far below groundwater, drinking water aquifers. The largest known earthquake to be induced by wastewater disposal was a 5.8 earthquake that occurred in Pawnee, Oklahoma in 2016. Yeah, so explicitly mentioning links to fracking and earthquakes that could be potentially damaging. So yeah, he's just straight up lying about this whole thing. Unbelievable. Ugh. If you guys want to see the link that of the other link that the other person posted, you can see that here. This one didn't work for me, Astro. It just came up like it came up like this. We can do equally at a lower cost, and motivation is so unbelievably insane, which is money, which is why the two options are either to dismantle the entire modern culture of society or just stop making it so economically viable to extract the fossil fuels. Put an absurdly huge tax on it, take on the same amount, and take the same amount off the renewable equivalent. Yeah, I mean, like, there's no, like, there's not much room for options here. And the reality is we need to be moving. We need to have been moving years ago. Notice those places don't usually have earthquakes without fracking? Yeah, because there's a direct link, as the USGS pointed out. That's absolutely correct. Yeah, for some reason it didn't work. It gave me like a weird broken link. Anyways, my point is, my entire point of bringing that article up was to bring up the climate change denial that is happening, and climate change denial, especially among very large figures on the conservative end of the spectrum, seems to be a consistent thing. Staff from climate skeptic groups recruited by Tory MP, which is the Conservative Party. A Tory MP who leads a group which campaigns against the government's net zero measures have recruited 2 members from the controversial organization that questions climate science. After The Guardian revealed links between the members of Net Zero Scrutiny Group run by the MP Craig McKinley and Global Warming Policy Foundation, further ties between the two organizations have been found. Politico reported that McKinley, an outspoken critic of the government's net zero policies, has taken on Harry Wilkinson, the head of policy at GWPF's campaigning arm Net Zero Watch, in addition to Ruth Leah, a former trustee of the arm, to work at its parliamentary office. Wilkinson is a critic of consensus on global heating, and has tweeted, "The climate crisis is a religious belief that's nothing to do with science." Good memes. The climate crisis is a religious belief that has nothing to do with science. I wonder if he says the same thing about like the tens of thousands of climate scientists who have spent their life's work analyzing for decades data, creating models, and doing all of this like work and studies. I wonder if he thinks that those are just based on religious beliefs. and not only like climate scientists here, but like an international agreement, an international coalition brought forth by all the top world's climate scientists, have pretty much in lockstep with the idea that, one, climate change is real, regardless of what that clown earlier said, and number two, that it has significantly to do with human activity. That's it. That's just pretty much an established fact. Unfortunately, that is very inconvenient for fossil fuels, for the fossil fuel industry. And the fossil fuel industry has done an untold amount of damage, and has captured governments across the world, including including over there in England, the Conservative Party, it seems. Wilkinson said, critic of consensus of global heating, and has tweeted such things as climate crisis is a religious belief that has nothing to do with science, which is woefully uninformed. A woefully uninformed statement. And makes claims such as, I think climate change is not a threat. It's happening a very gentle fraction of a degree per decade, which, by the way, is huge. Is huge. That's not okay. Which we can perfectly well live with. Yeah, tell that to the hundreds of people who have already died. Tell that to the untold economic damage that all these floods, fires, hurricanes, all of these things who have direct link to climate change has caused tens of billions. Who knows what the real amount of billions of dollars? Because it's not just like the property loss and all that. It's just the domino effect of economic damage that is done. People losing their jobs, people losing their homes, cities gone. Wilkinson celebrated the news of its appointment, tweeting, after 5 years of working for the researcher of Lord Lawson, I'm pleased to be able to take a position in Greg McKinley's office. Yep, climate change denial whispering in the ears of governmental officials. That's the TLDR of this. The whole, well, companies need time. Yeah, it is complete BS. Look at how fast they move when the pandemic happened. In 6 months, the world moved from working in office to at home. It went from buying out to deliveries. It went from masking to mask off. To mask wearing them off, at least outside. It even changed elections and governments to cope with the pandemic. The idea that we can't change things fast is complete bullshit. We lack the will to make it. So, yep. Alright, let's see. Real quick. Aha. Damn, I don't have that much time, Astro, but you know what? We're gonna save this, maybe. If we can. I need to run through this. Last one. Last one as to why the private sector is just woefully inequipped to deal with this. Not going to be the rich having to bear the climate change, and I read an article, the poorest people will bear growing the burden of the heat waves as temperature rises. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I posted the links up there. Did you see it? Facing Texas pushback, BlackRock says it's backs fossil fuels. Aw, boo. I reached my article limit. Damn. Alright. TLDR, BlackRock, remember, BlackRock is the investment firm, and there was a lot of talk about how investment firms were doing their very best to divest from fossil fuels, and that they would make sure that they would be more friendly to more renewables and try to push innovation when it comes to renewable technologies. And here we have it's BlackRock specifically is one of those who are notoriously came out and said that we were going to do our best, we were going to be the front runners, and we're going to make change or whatever. But in reality, that's just not what's happening. We cannot rely on the private sector to make it so, and it seems like companies are just not going to cannot be relied on to fix the problem. It's not going to be the rich that have to be burdens of climate change. I read an article that yes, that's true. That's why people like Douglas Murray can sit there and say that fracking isn't really a problem because there will never be a chance, or at least like in any immediate sense, that he's the one that's going to have to live with the consequences of that. He's not going to live near any methane, he's not going to live in anywhere near a fracking, area. He's never going to live nowhere near a fracking area. That's just never going to be a problem for him. And if Douglas Murray really feels so strongly about that, maybe he should live. Come here. Come to Texas. Come to Texas and live right next to a fracking facility. If you truly believe that, have some conviction. Have some conviction. Come here. Live in Texas. Live in Texas and make sure that you live in a fracking, because guarantee you'll be able to afford it. Live in a send it to me, Astro, because I can't see links in chat. Guaranteed that guy has the absolute money and resources to come here and live. Just go on. Have some conviction. Have a spine in your beliefs. And go live near a fracking town. The people who defend fossil fuels have absolutely no idea. It is either they have absolutely no idea the ramifications, the downstream domino effects of what we're doing, or they don't care. They believe it's not going to affect them. They have this deluded mindset that it's just not a big deal. It's not a problem. It's not a problem until it's my problem, but by then it's already too late. They fail to recognize the seriousness of the situation and just how dire scientists have been ringing these alarm bells for decades at this point. It's not new. Nothing about this is new. The reality is we have to get off fossil fuels in as many ways as possible, in as quickly as possible, whatever means we can, and it has to have happened years ago. Point blank. And people like Douglas Murray, people like Jordan Peterson, who continue to perpetuate this idea that the climate crisis is just some upplayed, some catastrophizing crisis that doesn't really, it's not really that big of a deal, are just insane. It's just insane. Truly, you do require some Olympic levels of mental gymnastics to justify the continuation of fossil fuels. None of the arguments make sense. Not the economic one, not the health-wise, not the ecological, not the climate arguments. None of them make sense. That being said, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate all of you guys hanging out here. You guys are what makes this channel grow. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. You get 5 free emotes. Don't forget to join us on the YouTubes. Don't forget to join us on the Discords. To keep up with any updates on the channel, I appreciate you guys. You guys are what makes us grow. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love y'all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya. You have a good one. YouTube. Represent. Thank you, Ecoresto. I see you. Don't worry, I see you. We all see you now, Zeoduke. Look at that, I integrated YouTube chat. Thanks for the bonus episode, of course. I wasn't here tomorrow, so I wasn't here yesterday. Sorry about that. All right, chat, hang in there. Okay? All right, folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. See ya. Pretty swish. Bye.